Well, hi everyone. My name is Christian, and I'm a new mentor at Mentorpiece. I have worked with Linux for almost more or less 20 years, and also I have been responsible for keeping infrastructure working for several types of web applications on web servers like Apache and Jinx, and also Tomcat. And today I'm here to share with you a really great tool for testing and troubleshooting web applications on Linux. And I hope you can enjoy the presentation and get some good tips and opportunities to use this tool to get better on testing and troubleshooting the web applications where you work. Okay, so let's begin. Well, here is our agenda, and first of all, this it's a presentation that talks about testing and troubleshooting. So Q&A engineers are the kind of professional that deals with this kind of situation on a daily basis. So we will start sharing some information about this career. That is a very interesting career if you are interested. And so we will talk about what Q&A engineers do and why web applications are an important part of the job. Also, we will briefly explain how web applications work, and modern applications mostly are web-based for several reasons, and we will talk about this. And then we will show some examples of using this very useful Linux tool to test and troubleshoot some situations, some common situations on web applications. And after that, we will be open to your questions and your doubts. So that's it. First of all, I want to raise some questions for you to think about. So why do you think web applications are the standard today? Yes, when you think of most of the social networks and applications in general that you use every day, most of them are web applications. Of course, many of them are also smartphone apps. That is another type of application. But if you pay attention, you will note that most of the smartphone apps have also a web version. So they have a version that works on the web browser also. And why is that? Yes. So this is the first question for you to think about. The second one, why troubleshooting web apps is important for QA engineers, yes, because their job involves analyzing and testing and checking all kinds of web apps, all kinds of applications, and also web apps. But why web apps are especially important for this career? And also, what are some good tools for troubleshooting web apps? So think about when you found some problem, or when you had some difficulty trying to access some web application, what tools you used to try to solve the problem? That's an interesting question also. So the idea of this presentation is to show a versatile Linux tool that have many features that can be used in several different ways to test and troubleshoot web applications. So that's why we choose this tool, and the tool is called cURL, and you will see why it's an important tool to have on your kit, on your and have knowledge about this tool can make a big difference in the way you deal with problems in web applications. So Q&A engineers are professionals responsible for planning, executing, and reporting on tests. And also, more recently, they are also involved in automating these tests. In the last years, the automation have gained much importance on this area because when you use methods and tools that allows you to automate some of these tests, the results are better because you set a standard. So the tests are done every time in the same way. So when you automate and when you make good use of the tools and methods that are available for testing applications, you have better applications with more quality and delivered also more quickly to production, because you in this way you assure that the tests are executed on in the right way, in the same manner, and that all the tests are not that all the tests are done, and so you avoid manual mistakes and some kinds of common trouble when you do the tests only by trying to guess situations that can occur on the applications. So this career, it's a very important today, because everyone wants more applications and more, and these applications need to be available for the people in a fast way. So today we need to respond to this sense of urgency of people. They want everything really fast, and so QA engineers play an important role in this scenario, because they are responsible for ensuring that applications are well tested before they are going into production. So that's why they need a deep understanding of how applications work, and of course, web applications also. So why web applications? What web applications are an important kind of application today? Because they are really easy to use. There is nothing to install from the user perspective. So all they need is a web browser, and any smartphone has a web browser. Any operating system comes with a web browser, and so it's really easy for people to access and use web applications, because they do not need to install anything. But of course, there are many things that need to be prepared on the other side. Yes, so from the user's perspective, there is nothing to install, but from the provider of the application perspective, there are several things to prepare and to test and to ensure that all is working fine before you can have a web application available for the user, and the user happy with the application they use. Another point, another important reason why web applications are so common and are available on any device. So I can use it on my smartphone, on my desktop, on my laptop, on my tablet, on almost on the TV. Almost any device is available, is capable of using a web application today. Of course, there are some differences, because some devices require some different behavior from the application, and not all web applications are prepared to deal with all the differences between devices and between web browsers. So sometimes you have something broken, and this is a real challenge, because keep the web application compatible with all the devices and browsers and all the kinds of environments that the web application can be used is really hard. But the companies try, and again, the QA engineers are play a very important role in this scenario, because they will need to plan and execute all the tests necessary to identify possible problems of compatibility of and limitations of some devices or in some browsers, and adequate the application so that the application works fine on the most number, the biggest number of devices and web browsers possible. Another important thing is that web applications can integrate with other applications. Since the internet, the HTTP protocol became one of the most used protocols, and it allows applications to communicate in a very flexible way. So, and today we have they call the REST APIs and other standards that make it standards that make it easier to integrate web applications, and so it's much more common that web applications integrate with another, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. And another point important is that web applications are scalable. Today, we have a need to we see fast growth for many applications. Once an application makes us some kind of success, all all people want to use it, and it's important to be scalable to be able to deal with this fast growth that is common for some applications today. And again, web applications, the most common architecture for web applications today, the three-tier web applications, allows for a very scalable way of developing and deploying web applications. So it allows the application to grow when needed, to keep working even when many people are using the application. So these are some of the advantages of web applications, and that's some of the reasons web applications are the standard today. So most of the applications, the most successful applications have, even though they have several times they have a smartphone app, they have also a web version. So how web applications work? They are called web applications because they are based on, they work in the browser, and to work in the browser, they basically needs to use HTTP protocol. So web applications are built over HTTP protocols, and as you can see on the image, the simple flow of information on a web application is that the user, by using a web browser, requests something from a web server, and the web server responds to this request with the information requested. So to request the information, the web browser uses HTTP methods that can be get, post, put, and there are other methods. Each one has a role in different situations of the application use. And when the web server responds to the request, it includes in the response several headers that are metadata that inform several important information about the response that is being sent for the user. And this response includes, this metadata includes a response code that explains what happened in the communication with the application. So if a request is successful, for example, the response will contain a header with a response code of 200. The code 200 means that the request was successful and the requested data is being returned by the web server. Another protocol important for web applications work is TCP, because web applications work on most commonly they use SSL or TLS more recently, that are a layer of security. And for this to work, they must use specific ports. For example, HTTP without any security mechanism uses the port 80. And HTTPS that uses a TLS security mechanism uses port 443. So, and for these ports to work and to build a secure connection between the browser and the web server, TCP is necessary, because TCP is the protocol that ensures that the connection is established and the connection is reliable, and that any problem with the transmission from the browser to the web server can be solved whenever possible, without affecting the application behavior. So that's why these two protocols are very important for web applications to work. So I guess now that you have an understanding of QA engineers career and also how web applications work, I guess it's more clear why QA engineers need a deep understanding of web applications, because this will lead to better troubleshooting and better testing of the most common type of application in the market. So this is a knowledge that is very important for this kind of professional. So now let's go to show you some examples of common situations that you can face in your when you're dealing with applications. And let's focus today on the cURL tool. That is a very versatile and very powerful and flexible tool. You will see, I will show to you in a minute. But there are all other tools, several other tools that you can use to test, troubleshooting, and checking of web applications. But today, because of time, we will focus on the cURL tool. That is a very powerful. And to have an idea of how important and useful cURL is, if you go on GitHub, if you go on several APIs, documentations, and several on Docker, on the page of Docker documentation, and several other projects, it's very common that they use cURL as an example for downloading the script to install, to simplify installation of applications. They use cURL to demonstrate how the API works. So they give examples of using cURL to access the API, and they use cURL in several situations that involves communicating with web servers to test, troubleshoot, and to even do things, use and collect some data without needing to open a web browser. So that's how important and how useful cURL is. So I hope you have a better idea once I start to demonstrate the tool. But before I demonstrate, there are two simple ways that you can reproduce all that I will show here from now on. The first one is to have a Linux machine. If you have a Linux machine, or your machine is Linux, or if you have a Linux virtual machine, or if you have a Linux machine on some cloud, you can connect to it and use it. You can use also, if you do not have access to any kind of Linux machine, you can use the simulator on this URL. This URL points to a simulator that opens a Linux terminal when you can use all the commands that I will show here. And I've tested some of the commands and they seem to work fine. So I guess you will not have any trouble using the simulator to reproduce the examples I will show here at the same time. So it's my recommendation for you that you try to reproduce everything I will do from now on the simulator or on the Linux, your Linux machine, because it's better when you do than when you only watch. So we learn more when we do than when we just watch other people doing. Okay, so let's go. I have opened a terminal here, and so to start, let's start with a simple example. So the cURL is a tool that comes with almost any Linux distribution you have on Ubuntu, CentOS, and several others. So the tool comes installed on the system, so you do not have to install anything to use it. And you just type the command cURL, and let's start with minus help, so we can see some options. So let's I will not explain the options, okay? I will use examples that are better for you to see how they work, but I want just to show you how many options there are, and this is a sign of the of how flexible and powerful this tool is. Okay, so I will show some examples here, but they are not every possible thing that you can do with cURL. There are several other things that you can do that I will not show here because of time, but I choose some interesting examples that I'm sure you will like and get something interesting from it. So to start, let's do the most simple way of using, that is cURL without any option, and point it to some site. Let's say google.com. So what will happen here? Sorry. Okay, so what happened here? What happened? cURL acted as a web browser, so it contacted the web application on google.com and returned the response. But how can I know if this response is correct, if there is some error, it's really difficult to analyze all this HTML. I know that is an HTML content by paying attention to the content, but this is an error message on HTML on a page with an error message, or is a page that is expected, the Google page, the Google web page, where I can search for things. So how can I know if the response was correct or not? So that's why there is an option that allows you to see only the header. So this option -I will return only the header of the HTTP response from the web server. So what happened here? I sent a request to web server on www.google.com, and the response was HTTP 1.1. This is the version of the protocol, and the response code was 200. You may remember that when I showed a diagram that explained how communication on web application worked, I told you that 200 is the response code that indicates the response is okay, that the request was answered correctly. So that's why I can now say that this communication was successful, because I have a 200 code on the response. And so now I can say that this HTML content here is actually the web page of Google when I search for something, when I open the homepage of Google. Okay. So let's, but if I want even more details of what is happening, I can use the option -v. In this case, I'm telling cURL that I want to know more details. I want the command to be verbose, so it will show much more information about what is happening between the client, the browser, in this case is the cURL command, and the web server on google.com. So now you see that the HTML is here, but also the header is here, and besides the HTML code and the header, I have also all the communication, all the details of the communication that is happening between the client and the web server. So I can see now that I am using TLS, that is a security protocol, and I can see what is the algorithm that is being used. This is important because some more recent algorithms are more strong, and some old algorithms and some older versions of TLS are weaker, and so they are subject to some security issues, and this can be a source of trouble, because not only the application could be vulnerable for an attack, for hacking, but also sometimes you have compatibility problems because some web browsers do not support the latest version of some protocols, and especially security protocols. And sometimes even the web server, if you are using an old version of a web server like Apache or Nginx or Tomcat, you can have trouble with this kind of thing because the web server does not support the most recent version. And so you have to find a way to keep the application secure, and if possible, update the version of the browser or the web server. And so that's one of the reasons that I said before that keep the application working with several web browsers version and on several platforms, web servers, etc., is a challenge because of things like this. There are many compatibility issues that arise, and it's important to know this so you can keep the applications working in the best way possible. I see also here the version of the protocol that's being used. HTTP has have a 2.0 version already, but in this case, maybe the version of cURL, and again, the version of the web server supports the previous version, and that's why it's appearing here, HTTP 1.1. Okay, so you have a lot of information by using this -v option. So we will use it from now on so that we can have more information and more data to analyze and understand how the application is working. So the next example will show involves a thing called redirect. So what is a redirect? It's when something, some URL changed for some reason. And so, for example, you had a version 1 of the application, and then you updated it to version 2, and the URL of the application was updated also to make clear that it's a new version of the application. Sometimes people do this kind of thing. And so the redirect is a mechanism that allows you to tell the web browser that the URL is have moved to another new URL. So in this case, what is happening here is that when I try to reach http :// it tells me that this URL moved to http www.google.com. So this is a redirect, and sometimes this kind of thing happens and we do not know, and that's one of the reasons, one more reason to use tools like cURL, because this kind of tool allows you to identify if there is a redirect occurring, because sometimes it's really fast and you do not have time to pay attention to this because it's really fast. For example, today most new web browsers do automatically a redirect from everything that is HTTP to HTTPS. So Google Chrome and other web browsers do this automatically. And if you try to access some site like this, for example, if I type this address or even this address, if I type this on Chrome, it will automatically redirect to HTTPS. So it will happen automatically and very quickly, so I will not be able to repair. And sometimes mistakes could happen when doing redirects. For example, the system is being redirected for the wrong version. The new version is the V3, and there is a wrong redirect to V4, for example. And so this could be difficult to identify because this redirect happens so fast that you think that the URL is the wrong and not the redirect is not happening. So that's another reason, as I said, to use cURL. Let's see another example. Another common error is to use the wrong port. As I said before, TCP is an important protocol because TCP is the protocol that allows you to have reliable connections, and HTTP, and by the way, web applications need reliable connections for them to work well. So TCP plays an important role. And today, where we have several components of applications communicating by web, by HTTP protocol, it's really important pay attention to these ports, because each connection and each communication must use specific ports for this. And if the application is configured in a wrong way, so you may have trouble trying to access the application on one port when actually the application is working on another port. So this happens, and that's why, again, it's important to use tools like cURL to test this kind of situation and check if the correct port is configured on the application. Actually, the timeout is very, it takes too much time to give up, let's say, trying to connect, because is the wrong port. And so we need to wait a little bit. Okay, so you can see that the connection failed, and it failed because this is the wrong port. Okay. Another common situation that can occur in web applications, it's the wrong path. So in this case, what will happen is, here you see the method used and the protocol version. So the curl command asked for the web server for the content of the path for the wrong path, and the answer was with code 404. That's a not found code, and this means that this is an invalid path that does not exist on the web server. And this is important because several times people type the wrong address of some application or and sometimes they have, for example, the old URL of the application saved on the browser, and then they try to access by the old URL, and this does not work because the URL changed on the new version of application. And this is why it's important to use the redirectors to point the user to the correct path automatically whenever possible. Yes. So this is another common situation that you can check quickly with cURL, because you have access to this response code indicating that the application is trying to access a path that does not exist. Okay. So now let's go for a little more complex example that involves sending username and first involves sending username and password by using cURL to test a login on some platform. So let's use, first of all, let's do something here. So there is a little trick here, because Facebook, if you try to get the main page, it's a lot of information, but Facebook has a more simple page that is this m.facebook.com, that is a mobile version. It's much simpler, so it's less content to analyze. And why I need to analyze? Because for cURL to send username and password information, we need to identify what are the fields. Yes, what are the fields on the HTML form that corresponds to username and password. So let's do this. But as you can see, even though it's less information than the normal page of Facebook, it is still much information to analyze in this way. So let's use another option called -o that allows us to save this the response in a file. So in this way, I now have this file fb.html that I can look. So this is an HTML page. So what can I do? I will try to find here some keywords that help me find the information I need. So I will search for input. Why is that? Because when I need to uh, to have some field for username and password, I use an HTML tag called input. So it's better if I include the, yes, if I include the minor sign, it's easier to find. So here I have a hidden field, so that's not this. Let's find the next. It's also hidden one. Let's try the next. Also hidden. Also hidden. So another hidden. Let's see here. So let's try the next. Again. Put it in them. I guess it's this one. So here, okay, here. So here we have input, and the name is email. So this is the email field that I need to send. And there must be another field called pass. In this case, the other field is pass, where I should inform the password. And so now what we can do, we will use the cURL -d option, where we can send this information. Email. I will put a wrong email just for just for example, as exemplification, and the password pass. Sorry. Pass igual a wrong password. Okay, so in this way, I could send username and password information for a Facebook page. And I also need to inform that in this case, I will use the method, the post method. Why? Because the most commonly used methods, HTTP methods, are get and post. And get method, when you use get method, the information is visible on the URL. So all the parameters that you specify by using get method, they go together with the URL of the application. And when you need to hide some of this information, that is the case of usernames and passwords, you do not want to reveal in the URL the username of the person that is accessing Facebook, and also the password. So you need to use the post method, because in this case, the information gets sent in another way, not visible in the URL. So that's more safe for this kind of information. So let's put here. And let's put here -v, so we can see what happens. So you see that an HTML code was returned, but what this HTML means. So you see that it wasn't a post method, it was used, HTTP version 1.1, and the response was okay. It means that the username and password were sent with success, but since I put a wrong email and URL, this must be again the login page, because Facebook, when you try to log in and you put the wrong username and password, they return to the login page for you to inform again username and password. So let's confirm this by repeating the command, but now saving again the response in the file, so we can check the content. And so if you check the content, I can see that there is an email field and also I can see here a password field. So I can see a password field and also, yes, it's type password, okay, and the name is pass. And I can see also an email field of type text. So they returned to the same login page asking me for email and password. So this is, as I said, this is a little more complex example, but it's useful when you need to interact with some kind of page from an application, or even when you need to interact with some API. And talking about API, this is the next example that I will show you. In this case, we will access an API of jokes. So what happens in this case? This is a joke API where I can ask for any kind of joke. And what will happen is that it will return a JSON response. As you can see here, is a response in JSON format. And this is the joke, okay? So it's kind of a dirty joke. So let's try another one. Okay, so this is an interesting API that I found. And why is that important? because most of the web applications, modern web applications, have a front end and a back end. And the back end, most of the time, are REST APIs that you can also test with cURL. So with cURL, you can test the front end of modern web applications by interacting with HTTP and HTML pages provided by web servers. And also, you can interact with APIs from backend to test and check the behavior and see if the application, the component, the API is working fine or not. So to give the last example, let's use GitHub API. So in this case, I can access GitHub. So what I'm doing here, in this case, I am asking for GitHub API, all the projects that the user, Christian, have started. So all the projects that I have checked with a star will be shown. In my case, oops, I missed the slash. In my case, this is public, but for other users, this information is not public. So in this case, what you should do, cURL allows you to include a header. And so in this header, you can send a lot of information. And for example, you could put here you could put something like this. And what this means is include on the request a header with my token, my GitHub API token for authorization. And this is tells GitHub API that I have access to, I have a token that gives me access to a private repository and or a private user information, and then it will return the information I need. And this kind of option is very useful when you need to authenticate to check if some API is working. So many APIs today needs a token of authorization of to return a response. Otherwise, they return a security error that about forbidden access and things like this. And so for these cases, you can include headers of authentications, and then you tell the API the information they need to allow the access even for private or sensitive information that can be accessed only when logged in and things like this. So this is very powerful because it allows you not only to test web applications and web pages and components that does not require authentication, but also allows you to interact and simulate the behavior of a real user, because you can include headers and you can include several kinds of informations that allows you to reproduce the behavior of the user when interacting with the application. You can even send files by using cURL. So it's very powerful, and it's very flexible also. So it allows you to have several possibilities of testing and checking the behavior of applications in different situations with different parameters. And so that's why I think it's a very nice tool to know about and to test on your when you have the opportunity with the web applications you use and you need to test, especially if you intend to be a QA engineer. It's really important to know this kind of tool. Okay. So, as I said, I recommend you to reproduce all the examples that I showed here, and as a final information before ending my presentation, I would like to suggest you, besides reproducing the examples I showed here, find an API on this repository on GitHub. It's very, very interesting. There are lots of public APIs about weather, about animals, about finance, about jokes, about almost everything you can imagine. So it's a really nice way to practice the curl command with interesting things. There is a very different API that caught my attention, because it's an API for doing diagrams. So you create a text that describes how you want the diagram to be, and you encode this text and send it to the API, and the API returns the image with the diagram you asked. It's very interesting. So you will find these and many other APIs on the repository. So that's my final message to you. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation as much as I enjoyed preparing it, and I hope the information I shared here to be useful to you. And so that's it. And if you have questions, you can let them on the Mentorpiece channels, and so we will answer as soon as possible. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and again, I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much.